What's up, everybody? Alex from Columbus here, back again with another video, and let's get into some end of the year list rankings. This will be, I think, the first in a series of sort of end of the year, end of 2025 rankings, top 10s, top 20s, etc. And so the first one I decided to do was my top 15 with a little bit of an asterisk. Top 15 favorite, best, whatever you want to call it, live releases and reissues. So I wanted to kind of combine those. I think thematically it made sense. And I got 15 of them. And again, maybe with a little bit of an asterisk, because there's a couple things here where I'm doing like a twofer or a double shot, because there's really no rules when it comes to this stuff. So cheers, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hope the holiday season's treating you well. It is indeed stout season. I'm drinking one of my all-time favorites, Founders CBS. Okay, without much further ado, let's get into it. First one is an absolute banger, but they're all bangers. You know, I've been seeing this everywhere. This was such an important reissue for a number of reasons. And I think, to me, the two that I really want to talk about are, A, this was a record that was in criminal need of just a reissue anyway, and then to get this sort of full Rhino high fidelity audiophile type treatment to make a premium product was just so, I think, brilliant. And of course, it is the Buckingham Nicks record. You know, a record that we would, just hear so much over the years. The record, obviously, that Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks did before joining Fleetwood Mac. And this was in like such a criminal need of a reissue, right? Like, people were buying originals for hundreds of dollars, like all this type of stuff, and everybody needed this. I appreciate that when they put this out, there was a lot of options. There was this sort of audiophile pressing option, right? Kevin Gray, I think, did all this work. Limited edition to 5,000. Yeah, it's like $40, but then there was a lot of other issues. There were indie exclusives. There were different colors. It was a $25 reissue, right? So they brought a lot of, I think, options, which I think is great. That way people don't just have to feel like they're shoveling out for the audiophile version. But not only was this sorely in need of a reissue, this is just a really, really great record. And so fantastic that it's become more accessible for people. Let's get into the live record that one of the live records that I'm choosing here. And I bought this because it was, it's currently one of my favorite artists. And I saw this artist on this tour that happened earlier this year, and it blew me away. And they turned around and made a live album out of it. But it is Live God by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So this is a take on their Wild God tour and album that they just sort of wrapped up, I think, a few months ago. And again, I saw them here in Columbus back in May, I think. And it was, I've been saying, like, the best show of my life. I absolutely went all in on Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I'm still sort of filling out that collection. But, yeah, this was sort of like a little bit of a, this is a hell of a gatefold. That's a picture right there of the gang. Awesome stuff. This was a little bit of kind of a surprise drop. I didn't hear or see anything about it until on release day. It was like, oh, there's a new Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds live album, and I knew right away I had to go pick it up. Really great set list. I will say, if you stream it, it's like the two record set is not the full set. I think if you download or stream it, there's like other tracks on there. But that being said, a great set. I think a really good kind of combination of obviously including a good amount of tracks from Wild God, but then also some classics like Tupelo, like Oh Children, From Her to Eternity, Red Right Hand, Into My Arms, etc. So a really great live album. This is pretty serene, not very in your face like some of the earlier Bad Seed stuff. But just absolutely amazing. This is, by the way, no particular order. We're just going all in here. And we're going to go back to the Rhino Hi-Fi here because this is a band, well, let's put it this way. This was a bit of a surprise for me because this is a band I really love, but I really loved everything they've done over the past, 20 years, not necessarily 30 years. And I was a little bit intimidated because I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to pick this up, and it is Wilco AM, their first record from 1995. This is also one of those Rhino high-fidelity audiophile pressings. When I say intimidated, I was sitting here thinking, you know, the whole story with Wilco and, you know, coming from Uncle Tupelo and Sunvault, and there was like this battle in 1995 between this and Trace of like, you know, what's the better. It kept using this term alternative country, and I think I still struggle with that from Wilco's standpoint. I hear it when I hear Sunvault. I definitely hear alternative country. I never have gotten a alternative country from Wilco, especially even from this record, which they said is like, you know, classic alternative country. Anyways, all that to say, it doesn't matter. I was intimidated because I didn't want it to be too kind of chicken fried. I love this record. This record is absolutely fantastic. And I'm so glad it got reissued, and this was sort of a chance to get a great pressing of this. I mean, they did, I think, an audiophile pressing years ago of this, but I had not seen this out anywhere in my days of shopping, and so I'm just really glad that they did a reissue of it. Here's another live album that I got to see this tour last year, but the live album came out this year, and it was absolutely fantastic. And this is a killer live album. But it is Neon Heat Disease live in Los Angeles from Beat, the sort of reconfigured 80s King Crimson project band. Adrian Belew, Danny Carey, Tony Levin, and Steve Vai. What a wild lineup. What a great, it's like the greatest supergroup of supergroups. And they play the classics and a lot of tunes from the 80s King Crimson era. So Discipline, Three of a Perfect Pair, and Beat. So obviously leaning into that whole Beat thing. I love that logo, by the way. I love this album cover. Of course, leaning into the whole elephant talk thing, which I think kicked off Discipline, didn't it? But man, fantastic quality sound audio here. Amazing performances. Great set. This is a triple LP. And okay, so next I'm going to do a little bit of a double shot because it's the same band, and it's my favorite band ever. One of these I'll show the record, and the other one I'll try to edit like a little thing somewhere because I do not have the physical version of it, but there is a story with it. And that, of course, is Dream Theater. You know, it was a huge year for Dream Theater and Dream Theater fans. We got the release of Parasomnia, the first record with Mike Portnoy back in the band in 15 or 16 years. They went on like 3 massive tours all around the world. They're still touring or going to different places again. This specifically was the last studio album I was impatiently waiting for. This is Train of Thought from 2003. They had done a run of vinyl pressings back, like, I don't know, 10 some years ago, and they all became $300, $400, $500. And I had every other studio album, but I did not have Train of Thought until this was put out for Rhino Rocktober. A lot of Rhino in this list, I guess. So, yeah, you know, my only problem with this is that it's a double, but comes in a single sleeve. No reel. I mean, I guess you kind of have this insert thing, but you know, I would say pretty basic packaging here, but Train of Thought, Dream Theater, maybe their heaviest record that they say. I think when this came out, it blew some people, it took them a little off guard because they were coming from a very progressive storytelling kind of world with a lot of orchestration. And this just kind of came and was just kind of hit people right in the face. So yeah, but the other record I want to talk about is a live record. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Quarantine. Every time I see it, I think it's Quarantine. I'm like, Jesus, this is 6 years later. But it's Dream Theater's live album that they recorded back in Paris, I believe, in early 2025. This was their, I guess you could call it, reunion tour with Mike Portnoy. And they decided to record it and put it in a whole box set and all this other stuff. Now, this came out on Black Friday, but my physical version, I ordered a special edition because they actually did a live viewing at select AMC theaters across the country. And I went to that, one of my local AMCs was actually showing it, and so I went to that, and it was amazing. I mean, it was like super high quality. It sounded great. An incredible 3-hour live show. And again, I got to actually see, not that specific show, but I got to see them on that tour. And so what's cool though is that for those who went to the movie showings, there was an exclusive like merch drop essentially. And so of course, like the 4 LP live box set comes out sometime, I think in like February. So I don't have mine yet, but I wanted to do a double shot of Dream Theater's Train of Thought that got reissued finally. on vinyl, as well as the new live record with Mike Portnoy. Super exciting. Okay, we'll keep it going with a record that everybody is showing, just like they showed it however many months ago when everybody got it. And it is as good as people say it is. And of course, that is Pink Floyd at Pompeii. This classic sort of movie, DVD, people get stoned, turn it on, of them at the ruins of Pompeii, sort of playing in front of no one. Has been bootlegged, or it's part of like some random box set. Maybe it's all this different type of stuff. But finally, we get the official release of it. And the sound here was done by the great Steven Wilson, who's just everywhere all the time. And I would trust that man with my life when it comes to sort of sound and remixing and all that type of stuff. So absolutely killer. Actually coming off of me just talking about Dream Theater, Dream Theater actually played at Pompeii this past summer, I think, or maybe the fall, whenever it was. And of course, in Dream Theater fashion, they decided to pull out Echoes, which they've never done before, but of course did that in tribute because they were playing at Pompeii. But this is still absolutely fantastic and just an amazing live release from this year. This one I'm going to cheat a little bit because it's a reissue of a reissue, I think. There's some technicalities there, but I wanted to include it because these were things that people were seeking for years and years and years, waiting for a repress, and we finally got one. And so it took what used to be about $100 record and turned it into about a $40 record. But it is an interpretation of the record that never was, but still pretty good. And that is Smile, the Beach Boys, or the Beach Boys, the Smile sessions. I won't go crazy into the whole history. You can look at it yourself, but, Smile was supposed to be this wild follow-up, to Pet Sounds. This was Brian Wilson, who really went in the machine to just crank out something pretty wild. It's avant-garde at places. It's certainly progressive from a philosophical standpoint. And then the project was sort of blackballed later on, so it was never released. But then they released Smiley Smile, and that was sort of like a sort of interpretation of it. This is a more true interpretation of it. Anyways, the point is, this is fantastic. If this record ever was actually to be, I personally would like this even more than Pet Sounds. It's hippy dippy, it's psychedelic, it's out there, it's soundscapey, it's musique concrète, it's everything. It's basically take the formula behind Pet Sounds and just turn it up to 11 and pop some more acid. But I absolutely love this and so glad that this got going again. Looks like this was lacquers were cut by Chris Bellman, which I did not know. And super happy that this got another, reissue. Because again, those earlier ones that came out, I forget when they originally released this or these sessions or whatever, but I felt like those were going for $120 for the last several years. So really glad for that. This was sorely needed, and I hope they do some more in the catalog for this kind of project. And I will admittedly say too, a little portion of this, why I'm showing it, is also because the wax is just outstanding. But they did a reissue of Funkadelic's debut record, all the way back in 1970. Now, Funkadelic records, especially those on Westbound, are not easy to come by. They're expensive and they're beat up. They were party records. People were snorting cocaine off of them and all that different stuff. I love it, right? Like, those are just kind of the P-Funk, Parliament, and Funkadelic records. Like, they're hard to come by. And there's not great reissues out there. That's the other thing. Now, Record Store Day last year, I think, released Parliament's debut, but this is the first time that we're getting Funkadelic. Now, don't get it twisted, though. This is not necessarily a funky record in like the Ohio Players sense. At this point, they were pretty acid psych. Similar to what you would get with Maggot Brain here in the next year or two. It's less of a funky record and more of a really acidy, psyche, you know, kind of like hard rock, acid rock record more than anything. And then, of course, they would get their funk going later on. Now, what's cool about this specific pressing is this was made, this pressing was exclusively for Plaid Room Records and Seasick Records. And I think this is just one of the baddest looking waxes in the world. Look at that, man. How dope is that? Kind of fits that cover. Incredible. So yeah, not only a great reissue and one that was really needed, but obviously some pretty sick packaging as well. All right, next we're going back to Record Store Day for this one. Now, these were also all just individually released via Rhino. I think they did it for this Rocktober, but this originally came out in the spring exclusively in this box for Record Store Day. And it is the either way out of print or never even released to vinyl, kind of mid to latter career of Warren Zevon. This is what, Piano Fighter? So this includes Mr. Bad Example, this includes Learning to Flinch, and this includes Mutineer. Now, I don't know exactly. I think 2 of these might have gotten a European vinyl release, and one of these, maybe it was Mutineer, never got a release on vinyl at all. But again, this is a great box that came out for Record Store Day. But again, they've released all of these individually. I'm a huge Warren Zevon fan. To me, there's no one like him. I just am always after his stuff. And so to get all of them in this box was really great. For again, some records that just aren't talked about enough. My particular favorite of this trio is Learning to Flinch. It's a live album of just him and his acoustic guitar or piano. So I happen to love that because that's a double live album, and it's just great stuff. So yeah, Warren Zevon, Piano Fighter, those 3 records, Mr. Bad Example, Learning to Flinch, and Mutineer. Okay, so we're back in Record Store Day world again, but to me and jazz world, this has been the highlight of jazz reissue campaigns. Now, granted, there's a million of them, and they're all amazing, and everybody's doing so much great stuff, so you have to be kind of selective with, you know, what jazz reissues you want to go with. But for me, my favorite that I've really leaned into is the new Strata East series. And specifically this one from Charles Rouse, 2 is 1, has been my absolute favorite. Strata East was a label that began in the early 70s, started by Charles Tolliver and Stanley Cowell, maybe? Sorry, I could be messing that up. I apologize. That really sort of specialized in a lot of this more, you know, soul jazz, funky jazz, a little bit of out there avant-garde stuff, really leaning into, you know, similar to maybe what like black jazz was doing at the time, or Muse, leaning into the artist and not the commerciality, really leaning into the self-expression and all that type of stuff. This is a funky, soulful jazz record. This is my favorite. They did 4 last year, or 4 earlier this year, and then 4 later this year. I picked up the earlier 4. I picked up 1 for Record Store Day here, and then the other 3 are on their way. But just fantastic packaging. I think these are all also done by Kevin Gray. Yeah, great gatefolds, real sturdy covers here. And I think some of the best hype stickers money can buy. So some really great stuff there. But yeah, if you're looking for where to start, check out this record. 2 is 1. A great intro to jazz record too, if you're a little bit intimidated, but fantastic. Charlie Rouse. So this next one I'm going to show, we're going to get a little bit heavier, but actually not really. This is from one of my favorite bands that I'm a pretty big completist on. I'm still waiting for them to repress 1 record, Deliverance. I'm talking about Opeth, and finally earlier this year, they finally reissued Heritage from 2011. Now, this is kind of a pivotal point, I guess, in their career. They're coming off of a couple of pretty spectacular progressive death metal albums, best way to put it. Now, Opeth, if you don't know, really started as kind of a black metal band in the 90s. They kind of abandoned some of the black metal-y type stuff and really got into like just some great progressive death metal. Prior to this record, it was back and forth, right? You would have like half an album that was some death growls, other half was just clean vocals. And for people like me, I love that combination, right? they put this record out, and I think it stunned some people. This was their kind of first record that laid the foundation later, from here on out until recently, to do away with the death growls entirely. So I think in one sense, you probably alienated some of your classic metal people, but also probably opened them up to a lot more exposure and accessibility to fans of classic progressive rock. So if you're intimidated by Opeth, you're not interested in death growls, but you are interested in just some kind of darker, heavier type prog, check out Heritage. This is a fantastic record, much like their other stuff. Some fantastic artwork, and in my opinion, just one of the absolute best logos that Opeth has. So I think a pretty polarizing record. I don't think it ranks at the top for many Opeth fans, but I think an important record and a really good one at that. So. Okay, we're back in Record Store Day land, and I love Record Store Day, I know. Anyway, I wanted to show these two because these were two kind of random jazz releases that are still out there and still inexpensive, even though they were pretty cheap to begin with. In terms of, they were maybe like 25, 30 bucks. Let's go back to the spring Record Store Day first, and this record, Happy Girl, from Nathan Davis. I believe this came out in 1965. I forget what label it was on. This was reissued on MPS Music. Not sure what this was, but this was kind of one of those lost records where finding a version of this cost $1 million. And it was pretty limited. I'm not sure what it was limited to exactly, maybe 1,200 or something like that. But then the other one that I wanted to show that's kind of in the same boat-ish is this one from just this past Record Store Day, Black Friday. Longano Parsons, trumpet player. This was released back in 1980, Private Press. But this is some great, they kind of advertise it as some pretty far out there free jazz. It's really not that much out there. It's not nowhere near Sun Ra, nowhere really near like a Pharoah Sanders, even for me. But if you like Strata East and black jazz and kind of leaning into that more self-expression, you'll love this. And again, this was super limited. Maybe only like 800 of these came out this Black Friday, but you can still get these on Discogs or eBay for what it costs, 25, 30 bucks or something like that. So we're going to keep the Record Store Day train churning. Do trains churn? Trains churn. This goes back to the spring, April 2025 Record Store Day. Here were two incredible releases. Rochambeau by The Grays, as well as showing Puzzle by Dada. So, yeah, both of these records I think came out in 94. Okay, so Dada was 92, and I think Rochambeau might have been 1994. Yeah, both alternative rock, power pop. Rochambeau was a one and done record. I don't know if it was mostly what they were known for, but Jason Faulkner was in this band. He was coming from Jellyfish, and so he kind of had like this. He was also in another one of those Paisley Underground, 3 alarm clock. Somebody's gonna help me out with that. Anyway, these to me, and really all there is to say about them, these were exclusives. They had either never been pressed on vinyl, or finding them is a tragedy. And they're just amazing kind of, definitely more power pop, definitely more alternative rock, but they sort of Venn diagram into each other. The Grays, Rochambeau, Dada, Puzzle. Okay, and last and not least, I am going to go a little bit jazzy here again, but it's a local thing, so I feel okay about it. But to me, I was really happy with some reissues this year because it brought some exposure and attention to the great Roland Kirk, or Rasan Roland Kirk. Now, Acoustic Sounds dipped their toes into reissuing some Roland Kirk for their Verve series. So those are all from Analog. I think Ryan K. Smith does them. Great packaging. This is one of them. You get your gatefold with the heavy jacket, all that type of stuff. But they did 2 Roland Kirk records. They did this one, Now Please Don't You Cry, Beautiful Edith. And then they also did We Free Kings, which was a Mercury title back from like 62 or 61. Fantastic jazz record. And again, I'm just so glad that they're kind of bringing some more exposure to Roland Kirk Roland Roland Kirk. Since he's from Columbus, and I'm kind of a completist when it comes to him. And I want to give a shout out to this. This just came out for Record Store Day here on Black Friday, and this sounds incredible. I know the other Roland Kirk record might not sound as good. That one's a little bit more like archival bootleggy. This sounds fantastic, and I'm so glad I picked this up. This is pretty limited. I think only maybe to like 12 or 1500. This is actually number one. This is actually just number 89. All right, and there you have it, my 15 favorite best new releases, new reissues and live releases from 2025. Let me know what you think, what your thoughts are, any other ideas or anything like that that you have in the comments. And yeah, we'll check you on the next one. Cheers, everybody. Bye.